Okay, this is day 9 of 365. um, I ran some sims from my previous session. We're going to be looking at small blind 3 bets uh, versus button through MP. The sims that I ran were in PIO were small blind versus cut off, just so I could run a script of all these at once. So these are the boards we're going to look at. These are the hands that I played. So here's Pocket Kings, small blind versus button. Some of them I lost, some of them I won. This is small blind versus cutoff. This is small blind versus cutoff as well. Here is a small blind versus button. And this is small blind versus MP. So we will take a look at these, see how I played them, and see if PIO agrees or disagrees with the lines that I took here. So first one we'll look at is this one. 3-3-2, and that was this board here. So we were 91 big blinds effective. Cutoff raised to 3 bigs. We 4-bet to 12, and then he called. This was the board. We bet, got called. Turn 1 check check. And then on the river we bet small, and villain folded. So let's see what PIO is doing with 9s in the spots. So we gave a flop range bet for each of these sims, because in each one out of position did bet the flop. So here we see bet to 12, so about half the pot. And in PIO, given the option to bet half pot or 1/3 pot, it slightly favors this half pot bet, especially here with pocket 9s. Our specific combo of pocket 9s were 9 of spades, 9 of hearts. And that combo seems to be betting large most frequently, so we had the right sizing here on the flop, and most of this range prefers to bet half pot compared to 1/3 pots. So when we do this, we can look at the response from the in-position player. Not really folding any ace-x here at all. All that continues, not really much folding at all versus bet. Just all this kind of non-backdoor king x, then queen x down. But any pair continuing, any ace continuing, any gut shot or straight draw continuing. Overcards with backdoor flush draw mostly continuing. So that is in position's range. So he ended up calling the flop, and the turn was the 3 of diamonds. And we decided to check here with pocket 9s, and that seems like a pretty big mistake, as PIO is betting at 100% frequency. We can see the EV here though between bet and check really isn't that different. Given the option to bet 76% pot or 33% pot, it slightly favors. Well, actually, in terms of equity, it's higher EV to, or it's just higher EV to bet 1/3 pot, but in terms of frequency, PIO is using 76% with all these kind of pairs here for the most part. And then these hands are going smaller, but still betting. So our check in terms of EV wasn't a huge mistake here, but it does seem like a mistake, seeing as PIO is betting this at basically 100% frequency, and we decided to check. But anyway, we went check check, and the river was 10 of hearts. And we decided to bet small with our 9 just to get some value. And this again seems like a pretty big mistake, as the EV of this small bet compared to PIO actually favors just a jam here with pocket 9s compared to any other sizing, which is pretty surprising because in position can still have 10s and jacks. But I guess they have a lot of 8 through 4s as well. So that makes sense. So decent amount of mistakes in this hand actually. And let's see with pocket nines, had we bet the turn, the sizing we were supposed to, if we got called, let's see what our river strategy would be on this card. So we'd still be betting with nines, still jamming with his hand. So pretty big misplay for me in this hand. I'm not sure I would have gotten any more value in this specific scenario had I played optimally, but still happy to notice these mistakes so I can prevent them from happening again. Next we'll look at this board, 9, 10, 3, and let's look at the hand that we played here. 10, 9, 3, so this was actually a huge hand that I played this morning that I lost. We started the hand 190 bigs effective right here. So the sim I ran at 100 bigs effective, but I'm going to look at this for 200 bigs effective because I'm sure the strategy is going to change drastically. But we'll run through this hand quick and I'll kind of show you guys how this played out. So we had a 3x raise. We 3-bet from the small blind to 24, get called. This is the flop, 10, 9, 3. We bet kind of 2/3-ish sizing, and we get raised here. And I wasn't too sure in the spot. I thought about just calling with pocket kings and seeing a turn. But I still plan on going with this basically on any brick turn that didn't complete the draws that villain will be raising with here. So I decided to just shove all in with kings. With aces, I probably would have just flat called. With kings, I decided to shove, and we end up getting all in against pocket threes and losing a pretty huge pot here. So I wanted to take a look at this in PIO and just see if this play is okay or if it's a pretty big mistake. And I didn't have much of a sample on this guy, so I don't know if he's someone who ever check raises flops just without having it. This was like the first time I've ever been at a table with him, so I wasn't sure. But let's take a look at what PIO is doing here. So this is for the 100 big blind effective sim. 10, 9, 3. Given these two sizings, PIO often prefers a smaller bet. Now, if we looked at this for 200 big blinds, this would not be the same. I'm sure a larger bet will be used much more frequently off a larger stack size. But in this case, PIO favors a small bet. We'll use the larger bet, though, which is what we did in the hand. And we can see here at 100 big blinds, there's basically no raising going on at all. So if villain did raise, kings are just jamming here, which is what I went with. We'll actually skip this one for now, and we'll come back and look. I'll rerun this at the end of the video for 200 big blinds, and then we'll analyze it that way. So we'll skip this one for now. So here 975. Here we go. So we're in the small blind with Jack 10 of hearts. Middle position raised. We 3-bets. And on this board we bet half pot. We got raised, called the raise. On a 4 turn we shoved and got a fold. And this looks like it might be a little bit too aggressive. Not sure what P was going to think about this play. So we'll take a look. And this hand was played at 93 big blinds effective. So let's take a look. So I think on the flop, what sizing did I go with here? So on this board, I used a half pot c-bet sizing and got check raised. So when we bet half pot, which here P is doing with Jack 10 suited pretty often, we bet half pot. Villain really isn't supposed to have any raises at all, so when he did raise this here, I'm not sure what he had or what he was trying to represent. But anyway, he did raise, and we called with Jack 10 of hearts, which is okay here in PL. with this gut shot to the nuts and backdoor flush draw. It is still minus EV call, but anyway, we did decide to call this. Turn was the 4 of hearts. And how'd this play out? Did I just lead here? So he raised 215. I threw his a 10. Flop goes bet, raise, call, and then on the 4 turn I just shove all in. So I donk, lead all in on the turn. I don't know what I was thinking here. I think I just I realized that if I check, like this hand just has so much equity, but I don't really want to like call a shove with this hand at all. So I decided to just rip it in myself, so I wouldn't have to fold. Um, but don't know if this is ever really supposed to be a play in theory. But I think that was just my thought process there. Just had so much equity that I would rather shove myself than have to call a shove. So it's kind of a hard one to look at in PIO, just given how much my strategy varied from what's recommended, or like just how much like the hand played out from how PIO would play it. So there's supposed to be no raising going on here. So it had villain called, and we got this turn. Um, my hand would be mixing between check and bet 76, it seems. So how we bet 76. This is more so how the hand's supposed to play out. Um, so yeah, not too much to take away from this one. Uh, and I think here just we had a gut shot and now a flush draw. I just didn't want to check and be forced to fold this hand with all the equity I have facing a shove, so I just put it in myself, it seems. And I don't know really how good or bad this is, but worked out in that case. So now we'll go here, 9-4-6. Right here. So we're on the button here. We raised to 2.25, small blind 3-bet. We called. On this flop, we flop a open-ended straight draw, backdoor flush draw. Villain bets 2/3 pot. We call. He checks on the turn, and we bet 76% pot and get a fold. And I wasn't sure if our hand is meant to bluff here 100% of the time, or if we're ever checking back this hand. So this is going to be a good one to take a look at. And we're 116 bigs effective here in this hand. So in position, or I mean, small blind bet large. We called with our hand 8-7 of spades, which is calling at 100% frequency, never raising with this combo at all. So we just call. Turn was a queen of hearts, I believe. Let me double check on that. Yeah, queen of hearts. And so with villain's value here, his ace queen, his aces and kings, queens, queens is doing some checking, but these hands are basically betting at 100% frequency. So when he checks this turn, very often we can discount these hands from his range. And when he does check, he's a lot of these weaker hands: Jack 9, 10, 9, King 9, a lot of 9x, a lot of 9x lower pairs lower than this queen, Jacks 10s. Uh, yeah, so all the values betting, a lot of these kind of marginal, just want to get the showdown hands are checking in the spot. So when villain does check, it weakens his range quite a bit, and we can actually so for in position, checking is definitely the preferred line with this hand. Although a 2/3 pot bet, or actually, if it is betting, it's preferring a small sizing. So a 2/3 pot bet with this hand actually is a pretty big mistake if we look at the EV loss. So I guess not really a good spot to bluff. I feel like if we have to have bluffs though, and this seems like one of the best hands to do it with. Absolutely no showdown value, open ended. Like PIO's bluffing with hands like King Jack. That's a gut shot and has an overcard, and I guess we're blocking villain's Queen X heavy with this hand. But it just seems like 8-7 just seems like such a more natural bluff to me. And I'm surprised to see the massive difference in EV between a check and 2/3 pot bet here. But we did end up getting the fold anyway. And when we bet this, villain's response is this. So not folding any 9, folding everything less than 9. And 9 prefers to call rather than 10s and jacks even, just because when these hands are behind, they only have 2 outs to improve, whereas these hands have a bunch more outs. They have 5 outs to improve. So a little bit better to call with these, just so you have a better chance of catching up when you're behind. But, okay, that was an interesting one. Pretty big misplay from us here. And it seems like we're making quite a few mistakes in this spot. So happy I decided to take a look at these today. And this is the last one we'll look at. Well, actually, we'll look at this one, and then we'll go back and run the King's hand at 200 bigs. But this hand played out like so. So we had pocket jacks in the cutoff. We raised, small blind raised, and we just decided to call. The flop goes check check. We bowed up on the turn. And rather than raising the turn, I decided to just slow play and call. And on the river, I shove here because villain only started the hand with 72 bigs effective, and by the time we got to the river, he would have only had like 58 bigs left. So it was basically like a 2x pot shove. So I want to run this just, I'm pretty sure like I'm supposed to raise his turn at 100% frequency with jacks. But we'll see what PIO is doing in the spot and see how big of a mistake our play was. Also, flop actually went check check in this hand. I don't even have that option. So this is a sim off the rerun. All right, so we're gonna scratch this one. The most important thing I want to do is just run that pocket king's hand back. Yeah, right here. So this is 9 of diamonds, 10 of clubs, 3 of diamonds. Starting pots. So starting pot was 25 bigs. And it would be 178. Just want to make sure these parameters are right. So 25. That's how much is left. Bet sizes. Okay, this seems fine. Should we force an OP bet for this one? Yeah, sure. Okay, this seems fine. Oh, whoops. Build tree. What is this? This hand was small blind versus button, actually. Okay, so we'll have to small blind 3-bet versus button. 1780, 250. Force OP bets. I bet half pot on the flop, so this sizing seems fine to me. we'll build tree, run this, and while this is loading, we'll take a look at some other sims here. Alright, so this is going to take a little bit to run this sim. So I would recommend fast forwarding through this part of the video until this finishes up. I'm just going to be sitting here in the meantime, scrolling through some stuff on my other monitor.